Okay, we'll call the Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 Select Board meeting to order. First on the agenda is warrant 2417 and Facilities Project 33.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Warrant 2417 from February 22nd, 2024. Totals in on the payroll side at $802,504. You'll see a little over $23,000 for overtime on the fire department and about $11,600 for overtime on the police side. Relatively light on the snow on that pass. Looking on the bills payable side of things, totaling in $962,221. On the town administrator line, you'll see $5,000 from the disposition of municipal property. That is the match for mass development for the Memorial Hall grant that we received to review that property upon our departure in a couple of years or so. Council on Aging, a little over $1,000 to repair the wheelchair lift that unexpectedly broke last week. For the week prior. DPW, a little under $20,000 for the Liberty Street water main. They're continually working on the water looping projects. Some neighbors may have seen them doing some test pits and boring and other things out there. You'll see about $5,000 for new radios for the police. It's an annual town meeting appropriation. That's something that they're continuing to step in, and you'll see that come up in the capital plan. We have actually had conversations if it's going to be a reoccurring expense and maybe just folding it into the operating budget, but we'll dig into that more on March 2nd. And then on the school and town sides, two hefty sums, $211,000 and $147,000, both health insurance premium payments. On the facilities project warrant side of things, FP 33, total amount of $27,056. Largely pre-construction services, and $7,000 of that is the commissioning agent fee. So we did receive a breakdown, and as referenced in the last meeting, this kind of mirrors the work the OPM described. So continually working on scope sheets for the filed sub-bid trade. So it's a pretty significant undertaking in the home stretch, trying to finalize all of these bid documents. The importance of it is that anything that they catch now is going to save us money in the long run, because if there's a error or omission that we don't catch, it goes out to bid, then we get hit for a change order down the road. So, you know, at this point in time, I'm sure there are people raising their eyebrows and saying, well, $27 to put bid documents together, but it's actually every penny there is money well spent. So the other piece is Terva, who's the commissioning agent. They're going through all the mechanical drawings and everything else, just making sure that when the time comes, you know, for an HVAC technician or an electrician to come in and install something the way that it's drawn out on the sheets, that they don't get there, go to do it in the real world and realize it's something that's not feasible or that it's going to lead to other change orders down the road. So it's just another cost-saving measure. And that is everything at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Any questions from anybody?
I'll move to accept warrant 2417 and facilities project warrant 33.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, Justin. Next, we have some minutes to approve, February 6th open session and February 6th executive session. Everybody had a chance to look at them? Yep.
Yeah.
Good motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for February 6, 2024 open session and February 6, 2024 executive session.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have a donation to accept from the Bethesda Law for the Middleton Lodge for the Middleton Food Pantry.
Make a motion to accept the donation to the Council on Aging from the Bethesda Lodge with thanks for an extremely generous donation. Thank you.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much to them. Okay, Justin, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few items to go over. I've received a draft of the 40B development agreement over Angelica's across the street. And Angelica's, right? I always flip it in my head. Yeah, okay, thank you. We'll be reviewing that with legal counsel over the next week or two with the intent to bring that forward to the select board for a first pass review anyway, sometime in March. I anticipate there's going to be a little back and forth there, but at least it'll give you a starting point. I had a meeting with the Moore and Cameron group regarding the engineering at Locust Street that we had discussed at the last meeting. After a little conversation, it was actually my recommendation, they just come into a meeting and sit with the board at your upcoming meeting in March to talk about the scope of work we discussed, so that you all can kind of, in an à la carte sort of way, really pick and choose what services you'd like for them to go through on that property. We had a startup meeting with a consultant that's exploring the options at Memorial Hall. That was, well, the $5,000 installment you saw is the same initiative. So as part of that conversation, my appreciation first to Jackie for coordinating that. Part of the conversation was, how do we cast a wide net in terms of identifying the various players in town and making sure that we're getting input from everybody in the community. The Memorial Hall parcel, I think, is, I don't want to say loaded, but a somewhat emotional parcel, I think, for some people in town, more so than others. And so we want to make sure we're really providing a platform for people to come and voice their opinion on it. So as part of that, one of the boxes they'll be checking is coming before the board at some upcoming meeting. But they'll meet with some other groups and interested parties as well to try to get a real cohesive vision for that parcel. I had the pleasure of attending the chocolate walk on the rail trail with my family earlier this month, so I just wanted to thank all the volunteers that worked so hard to make that rail trail as we see it today a reality, and to thank you for all the work they do to support that important community asset. It was a really great event, very well attended. The weather was excellent, and my son was very excited about the chocolate. So. Our team is working to finalize the fiscal 25 capital plan. We've spent the past several weeks meeting with various department heads to talk about the intricacies of what requests they may have in the upcoming year. Jackie and I met with Finance Director Wood today to kind of cross the T's and dot the I's on that. We'll be bringing the full plan before the board and the Finance Committee at your upcoming meeting on Saturday, March 2nd. And then just lastly, I've been meeting regularly with PCA 360, our OPM for the municipal building project. We reviewed the 95% plans, and we're really just going over those with a fine-tooth comb. They're right on the edge of going out. They're really close, so I know people are eager to see movement down there. So we're keeping them on the schedule. We're anticipating late April, early May, but really pushing for late April.
Late April to award the bid, or late April to put shovels in?
Groundbreaking.
So how long from when the bid documents go out till we would give people to bid on them?
4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not trying to, there was conversation about, for the sake of moving things along, only doing 2, but in my experience, and the OPM agreed, the longer you leave it out, the better. You're not rushing contractors, and you're deepening the pool of people interested in the work, so it'll make things a little bit more competitive. But we're excited for that to kick off probably in the next couple weeks.
Well, that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's everything.
Any questions for Justin from any board members?
Just touching back on that Liberty Street water main expenditure, is that anything to do with the 2 projects we have coming up with the looping, both on
Yep.
Liberty and Essex? And is there any, I'm being asked a lot from over there, was there any time frame that we're looking at with that, or are we still in?
I'll go back and get one. It's pretty early.
Okay, okay.
So for now, the work that you've seen them do is the coring to try to get a good idea for what's underneath the road. So for anybody watching at home, we have no idea for the most part what's under the pavement by and large beyond utility things and dig safe items. So when they're coring, they're looking for ledge or other obstacles they might run into when they're trying to run a pipe. And so that, at this point in time, that's what they're trying to determine. I think once they have all of that data, they'll be able, or be more comfortable anyway, to offer up an end date for that. But I'll circle back with Paul and get you something.
Thank you.
Okay.
I know we had talked briefly about this. I don't know if you have any more information. Is there any opportunity for anybody that in the past didn't have access to town water that could now hook up to town water due to this project?
There's limited ability, and so I would encourage, if there's anybody that has any questions about that, to reach out to me. I'll connect them with Paul directly. I know there's one individual that Paul called personally and talked out the logistics. It's not terribly cheap to hook up, but I think for some people, if the timing makes sense, we'd like to give them the opportunity.
That's good.
Are stubs being done so the road wouldn't have to be reopened in the future?
Yep, they're trying to be as strategic as possible as they're making their way down.
There'll definitely be some that are still, well, from Vera to the rail trail, say, so.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? No? Okay, is there any public comment anybody wants to make? No, I guess not. Seeing none. Move on. So we have an appointment of a full-time police officer, Robbie DeShanes. And we have Captain Armitage here, and Robbie, I believe, who is well-known to us.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I know you have a full agenda, so we'll make it quick. We're here tonight to ask the board's support in not appointing, but reappointing Robbie DeShane as a full-time police officer with the Middleton Police Department. Most of you know Robbie. He was with us for about 4 years, a couple as a reserve, a couple as a full-time, with a small break in the middle to attend the police academy and get his master's degree in a joint program at Merrimack College. He left us late last year in 2023 to move over to Hamilton. We were very sad to see him go, but wished him the best, and we've remained in touch since then. And since we've had 2 recent openings, our conversations circulated back to whether or not he'd be interested in rejoining, coming back to Middleton. And I'm happy to say he is interested in coming back, and we are very interested in having him back. So I hope the board will support us in bringing him back. So
When would you be able to start? How much notice would you have to give your current community?
Right now, my last full day of appointment's next Tuesday, the 27th.
So it's always good to know you can come home.
Yes, absolutely.
No, we're glad to have you back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be
very
back.
much so.
Thank
And,
you.
welcome addition.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion?
So I'll move to appoint as a full-time police officer Robbie DeShane for a term until June 30th, 25.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming in.
Congratulations,
Thank you very much.
Robbie.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, we have appointment of the,
So-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Should Eileen swear him in before he
Oh,
leaves?
Eileen, do you want to swear him in?
It's up to him, otherwise.
You want to get sworn in now?
It's okay with you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah, all right.
yeah. Good photo op.
I don't know if Eileen has her cheat sheet with her. Do you know if I have her now?
She's got it memorized, I know her.
I'm gonna give it a whirl, Brian. Give it the old college try. My predecessor taught me well. Whoop, sorry. You solemnly swear you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a full-time Middleton police officer with a 1-year probationary period in accordance with the bylaws of the town and the laws of the Commonwealth, that you will abide by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the charter and bylaws of the town of Middleton, and the rules and regulations of the Middleton Police Department in accordance with, no, I'm sorry, with impartial abilities.
Thank you. Thanks, Eileen.
I knew she had it.
Okay, next we have an appointment of the tenant member of the Middleton Housing Authority. The regular members are elected, but the tenant member is appointed by us. And we have Sharon Purchase here. Is Sharon here tonight? No?
No,
Okay.
she's not. She was supposed to be.
We can move it up and,
Told me she was coming.
Are we moving too fast? Maybe she thought it was later.
we can revisit it. We'll put it on, like, we can wait and
Put
revisit
it later on the agenda.
Later on the agenda tonight, yeah, okay. Okay, we have a joint meeting with the Charter Review Committee to talk about some amendments. I think Frank Swiss is here as chairman. Yep, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. Thank you. First thing is, in accordance with the open meeting law, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I would like to introduce the members that are here this evening. Of course, for those of you watching, my name is Frank Twist. I'm the chair of the Charter Review Committee. Trevor Currier is the vice chair. He was unable to make it this evening. We have George Dow, who was our long-term chair. He actually was the chair from the inception of this committee. And on the December 5th meeting, we had a reorganization, and I took over as chair. And George, thank you for your service as chair. We have James Vining, Sharon Bainbridge, Natalie Lovett, our retired town clerk, Sally George, and our awesome recording secretary, Christy Bilecki, up in the back. Thank you, Christy, for all your good work. So I'm here this evening just to tell you where we are. For quite a while, we've taken on this document. We've gone through it in a painstaking fashion to make sure that we're going to do the right thing. There's some sections that we have put aside. We'll handle those at the end when we reach out to our town council. In terms of, some of those, like the recall of elected officers, I know that's something we had talked about for quite a while, and we will have a recommendation for the town meeting at the appropriate time. We discussed things like the quorum. We looked at our elected officers, and pretty much those are remaining the same. We had our town administrator, Justin Saltz, back at our last meeting, and we went through the pertinent sections of the charter relative to the town administrator's function. And I know that there were a couple of sections there that will require some additional review, and I think maybe if you want to chime in on that, Justin?
Sure. So back on January 30th, I was invited to join the Charter Review Committee, as mentioned in your memo, and we were talking about areas that are specifically, areas of the charter that are specifically adjacent to my role and the extent of my powers. And additionally, that bleeds to and is adjacent to the select board's powers. Ever taking the bold stance, I defer to the board in terms of how you feel about some aspects of those. And I do appreciate the committee for asking me. I have some opinions on it. This is the fourth municipality I've worked in, and I've seen different iterations of my role. And I've seen areas where it worked out. I've seen areas where there are friction points. To date, it's been an excellent experience for me in Middleton, but I felt it was appropriate to not only get my opinion, but yours as well. So I appreciate the whole squad, or most of them anyway, coming out tonight to talk with the board a little bit about it in any areas in the charter that, that are adjacent to your role specifically. And also just a big thank you to the Charter Review Committee. It's a huge undertaking, and you're very much doing the work of your fellow citizens, so thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Justin. And maybe if the board agrees, we could get those affected sections in writing and get them to you folks for your review, your collective review. I think that may be the best way to handle
Are you going to
that.
bring them up tonight and?
No, because I would like you to have it in advance. So
Oh,
you
okay.
could,
You'll
have
come
it as-
back, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief, are there many sections that the committee is thinking about some recommendations to town meeting, or is this just a kind of reviewing all of the functions of?
Yeah, we went through the we're in the process of going through the document. We're actually, we're just about there. And I know there was a question about us being on the annual town meeting warrant, and I'll say right now that we will not be ready, because as we get through, we're actually in chapter 10. All right?
So, Chief, when do
We're
you
almost
think,
to the end.
when do you think the committee will be ready to put a bow on this?
We will, look the document over. When we get to the end, we're going to go back over some of these sections that we tabled, and we'll get those wrapped up. We'll get the document in a draft form so we can send it to town council for a comprehensive review. And then, if there's changes that town council recommends, we'll make those appropriate adjustments, and then we'll get a draft, probably a second draft document ready for for you and for town meetings.
Do you think that will be fall special, next annual in 2025?
Yeah, I think I will defer to our moderator, our town clerk, and you folks as to when would be the most appropriate time to bring that to the townspeople.
I wouldn't want it in a fall, not something like this.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
I don't
too big
disagree
for a
with you
fall.
on that. I was wondering more, because I'm assuming, I know the moderator's here, I'm assuming there'll have to be some type of vote at town meeting to extend this again?
I think it's on
We
the
extended
draft.
it through
25.
June of 2025.
Yes.
So
Oh, I thought it was
hopefully-
24.
Hopefully, we can get it done in May of 2025.
Yeah, we were reappointed to
Right.
June of '25. So that, that's our plan. If any of the committee members want to chime in, I know George was at the wheel for many, many months, years. That seems to be the appropriate course of action? Okay. Yeah, we're excited about it. You know, we had to go through and do a lot of the changes, you know, changing you to select board, and the gender neutral things, but, which we've since passed, but some of the language, you know, is archaic, and it goes against Mass General Law, so those are the things with the initial recommendation of town council that we have started to take out. Again, you know, there's things like the quorum that, when we had our meeting with you folks, I think the general consensus of the committee was to keep the quorum the same. Is that correct, George? Yeah, Sharon? Natalie? Yeah, I think that's true. So, again, you know, just between what we're working on, what we worked on with Justin and the recall, I know that was some of the bigger issues that we're coming across.
Well, I think it would be worthwhile if we could do, at one of our future meetings, for lack of a better term, kind of a working session with you, to kind of review the sections of the charter that you all are looking at as it relates to the roles of this board and the role of the town administrator, especially where they intersect. I appreciated the memo you sent. It makes a lot of sense. It's not done in a vacuum. And then we kind of transmit back to you guys as soon as possible, so you can put that in your mix of recommendations that we may or may not be making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sooner rather than later, if you have some ideas, to get them to us so you can get our feedback.
Yeah, there was one complete section or a paragraph that town council had recommended we insert, so, and among a couple other statements within those sections, so, yeah, we'd be happy to.
But are there recommendations on roles and duties that your committee is looking at?
That was an initial recommendation of town council, and this goes back to, you know, when Andy was here
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah, there was one particular section that, you know, talked about, you know, some of the day-to-day type operations and
Okay.
help our local government run more, well, it's running smoothly, but more smoothly. So, any particular questions from the board?
Anything?
So I think for, my takeaway is for an action item, we can meet one more time and get together some type of
Document.
cohesive document that I can then turn around and bring back here. We'll review it, and then I'll bring the feedback back to you to spare you from an additional night meeting.
Oh, that's all right. No, I don't know if I had to travel, and you know, the town clerk's going to be here more and more. So, but no, and we appreciate the input from you folks as well as from Justin. That's why we had him in, to make sure that you know, we do this once and we do it correctly. So,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for all
All right,
your
thank you,
efforts.
and,
from the
Thank you all,
whole
the
committee.
entire committee. Yeah.
Thank you.
and I'm just going to
It's a
entertain.
lot of
George,
work.
for chairing it.
Yes, and for our committee, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, have a second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, folks. Thank you so much.
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
guys. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we have a continued review of the articles for the annual town meeting. Is there any you wanted to point out or of note?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's just a couple updates. As always, as a reminder, it's a living document. It's late February at this point, and this is going to continue to shift and firm up as we march our way into May. So a couple items from the last time we discussed it in list form. I guess we can just go straight through from the top, and I'll pick off the ones that count. Barbara, would you like a updated hard copy to follow along? So Article 1, to hear committee reports, pretty straightforward. Article 2, the snow.
Don't say it.
Yeah, right.
Knock on wood. So the snow and ice deficit, we're actively reviewing that. I had a conversation with Superintendent Goodwin today, and Finance Director Wood and I, and Assistant TA Bresnahan met on this topic. We have 25,000 and there's a placeholder. You know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still a long way to go. So it is New England, so we'll see where that lands. That would come out of free cash, more than likely. To Article 3, pay bills of a prior fiscal year, we have a couple items that we think might pop up, small number things, like a $500 bill and one other maybe. So we're still shaking out the details on that. Article 4, budget correction for the shared health grant, and Jackie's been working on that item. Is there anything you want to highlight on that?
Just that this is in connection to the fact that we're going to be taking over the Shared Public Health Excellence Grant from Topsfield. We already took on one of the employees, so this is just some financial housekeeping to do with that program. At the end of the day, we get reimbursed 100% for everything we do with that program, but this is just so that our books are nice and clean as we work through the reimbursement process for that grant.
Thank you. And I will note that looks like there's a carryover here referencing the golf course in 2019. So like those are items that we're going to continue to polish out on the purpose section there. On the financial article side for fiscal 25, a review and approval of compensation for elected officials in Article 5. Article 6, the fiscal 25 omnibus budget, which we're still shaking out a lot of those figures. There'll be an update on that on your March 2nd meeting. Article 7, the community preservation budget, debt service, CPA projects, and expenses. We have received communication from the CPA, so thank you. We've updated those figures. One question that did arise, and this is mostly for my benefit, is being 7 months in at this point, but not quite a full cycle in a year. I'm still trying to feel out how some things are done, and the process in terms of proposing Article 8, community preservation new projects. At this time, there isn't anything that I see coming down the horizon, but we're going to take a hard look at that, and I'm sure it'll probably pop up as an item of discussion on March 2nd. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Just that, if, anything, in the past, we have, set aside, appropriate money toward the rail trail. I don't know.
Hasn't been, no. We haven't accessed that.
Necessary. We've, appropriated money toward the common at the municipal complex. As you getting a better feel for what those expenditures might be, if the appropriations to date are not going to cover those, you may want to propose another batch of money to do it, or we could wait until, further, if we're not going to be spending it on something else, it'll just stay in there and be available, later on when costs are more certain.
Mm-hmm. And in the municipal project in particular, I think that makes sense. It's probably, if something were to come forward, I would think it would be next May 25, when we have a better idea of what the bids will come back at, how things are going in the project and whatnot. But we'll be going through that process.
And so after the capital budget review, we'll have a better idea, and the CPC is scheduled to meet Monday, March 25th. So for the warrant reading on the 28th, we should have, finalize the CPC budget and Article 8.
Perfect.
If
Thank you.
needed.
Article 9, fiscal 25 revolving fund spending limits. Pretty self-explanatory. Article 10, so now we're getting into areas, and I plugged in a lot of TBDs here, so we're still waiting to get a lot of these numbers, and they're probably going to start really shaking out over the next few weeks. But Article 10 is the South Essex Sewer District Enterprise Budget. Article 11 is the fiscal 25 water.
The chart on 10 should go up to 9.
Yes,
Yeah.
it looks like it bumped. Thank you. Excuse me. Article 11, the water enterprise budget. Article 12, the MELD budget. Article 13 is transfers to reserve accounts. I think the purpose is bumped on a couple of these as I'm looking at them. And we're still waiting on an official number or figure for that we discussed today. The fiscal 25 capital budget, which is going to be largely informed by the meeting this upcoming Saturday. At this point in time, we don't have a definitive idea for capital projects, hence the Article 15, the magenta banner there, saying capable of capital projects to go here following March 2nd meeting. Article 16, this is the final work on opioid funds. It's based on, as you know, there's been some back and forth in terms of guidance from the Commonwealth on how we can accept the opioid remediation funds and then how we can expend them. So this should be the final piece on that, and we're just waiting on some language.
Which article number was that?
Article 16, sorry. Final work on opioid funds. Article 17, acquire and fund acquisition of easement for Maple Street Bridge project. That one, I think, is outstanding and may actually not happen at this point in time. What was the backstory on that again, Jackie?
So this has been on the town meeting warrant since I started working here. So we're in the state tip for that bridge project, and we're waiting for a certain percentage of design to be completed by MassDOT so that we can take those easements. But until we have the appropriate design plans from MassDOT, we are at a stalemate. So it's a standing article until we can take that action.
And given where we're at in late February, I wouldn't hold your breath on it. So, but we'll follow up just to do our due diligence. Article 18, this was another carryover where it was just something that was missed. It was an inadvertent omission regarding the education stipend for the treasurer collector. Article 19, the investment income.
I think the copy that's in our package is different than what you're working with.
Yeah, so you have, sorry, there should have been one as you were sitting.
Oh, we got, yeah,
okay.
there's a brand new one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Article 17.
Thank you.
Article 18, or excuse me, 19. Article 20 is the MBTA zoning. Article 21 is the two-family by right zoning, and Article 22 is the accessory dwelling unit zoning. Those, I think, based on feedback, we might find 2 out of those 3 may be postponed. The MBTA zoning piece, in particular, is a little time sensitive. I know there's a lot of debate, but if it's something that doesn't go through, it would have to go on, if there's an appetite for it, a special upcoming in the fall. If it doesn't pass at that point in time, we're out of compliance. So just something to keep an eye on.
I think we've tried to keep zoning changes off of special meetings too. So try to keep them in the general, so.
Right.
Can you, the MBTA zoning, because so many people are asking, what exactly is the penalty to the town if we didn't do it? Because that's the most asked question that I get about that. So what exactly are the ramifications if we were just to ignore that?
Yeah, so they hit you financially, so it limits your access to grants. And I've been following some feedback from the surveys, some comments on social media, and I have seen some people say, well, we don't get them anyway, we're not eligible for them anyway, so it's really no impact. I wouldn't say that's entirely true. In fact,
Received some of them.
we've received some, and there's some heavy hitter ones coming down the road that we've been laying the groundwork for. So, MassWorks projects trying to address the traffic on 114, that's a $2.5 million hit you know, I don't want to jinx it for us, but it's a borderline slam dunk in terms of the dynamics of the 40B project there, the existing traffic issues we have, and the public-private partnership between the commercial development, the housing development, and the public infrastructure. Like that one is, we have a really good shot there. And so we would be forfeiting that opportunity. Now, even with that said, I understand that some people say, well, so be it. And I can't do much for that crowd, but that is a reality, unfortunately, is we would be.
I mean, it does seem like the state is leaning more on the communities that actually have direct MBTA service. I think it's Watertown. Was it Watertown that I just?
Milton?
Milton, that rejected it at town meeting, and the Attorney General
Well,
was,
they passed it at town meeting.
but rejected on the ballot.
Right.
Because their charter allows some, town meeting action to be taken to a ballot.
Yeah, to be brought to the ballot, and, you know, the Attorney General was pretty clear that she was gonna enforce. Now, we're not a direct MBTA community, we're part of the MBTA district, but I've gotta think if they're gonna make a point of one community, albeit a bigger community that actually has direct service, I think at some point they're gonna start making an issue of communities that are similar to Middleton size.
It does not go to the ballot in Middleton, correct?
I do not know that definitively.
No, it doesn't.
I
No,
think so.
no.
Tony doesn't.
The town meeting vote is how I
But it would need a
understand
two-thirds
it.
at town meeting?
It's a zoning
Yeah,
change.
zoning.
So, you know, depending on where and how it's defined, you know, we can have it without necessarily having an impact, a
Right.
great impact. You know, it doesn't have to be zoned in an area where there's empty land. If there's empty land, something will be built, you know, if there's zone. If there's in a developed area, then, you know, it is less likely that more development happens because there are already successful projects on that. So, you know, in some of, you know, the planning board has had two public input sessions, you know, one recently and one back in, you know, November, and there was an area that was suggested by lots of people at both of those meetings, and I think if the planning board, you know, looks into that, it, you know, it might, you know, satisfy our legal obligations, you know, enforced by the state without, and limit any potential harmful impact to the town at the same time, so.
I agree with Stephen.
Well said.
And what we're always kind of mentioned, albeit lack of a better term, threats from, you know, not following that thing, well, we're seeing what can happen now, so. to be-
Yeah, I just
yeah,
also
to-
don't want to lose sight of
It's
the
in our
fact is,
best interest.
Right.
and it's, I mean, our feet are on the fire on this, but I also say, I mean, the reason why the work is being done by the Affordable Housing Trust is, you know, I think the MBTA district is a requirement for a community like Middleton and most of the communities that are already pretty well built out. It's to the point of what Costa stated. It's going to be areas that are designated that likely are already built out to the extent that somebody isn't going to come in and bulldoze neighborhoods to rebuild. However, we have an affordable crisis in this town, and people had better realize it. I couldn't afford to buy the home I live in now if it was for sale and I was buying it. I'm not the only one, and my wife and I are blessed. We're very lucky, but we couldn't afford to buy the home that we own. If I had a nickel for every time somebody in this town speaks to me about how difficult it is for their children to enter this town and buy a home, or if I had a nickel for everybody that is trying to retire in this home, in this community, and remain in this community, I'd actually would be able to buy my home. So I think this issue and other issues that may be coming up this town meeting or a future town meeting about affordability access, sometimes you have to look beyond the trees and see the realization that there's opportunities to do things that can have a positive impact on not just those that live in this town, to stay affordable, but those that maybe grew up in this town to actually remain in this town. Never mind enter this town for the first time. Until these are honestly addressed without a not-in-my-backyard mentality, we'll be at this in 5 years from now talking about how even more unaffordable it is. I mean, the MAPC came back as part of their study in Middleton, and what the actual income level needs to be for somebody to afford to buy a home in this town basically eliminates the ability for anybody that has grown up in this town, graduated from high school, graduated from college, and wants to remain in this town. I'll use both of my children as examples who have very well-paying jobs. This town is completely unaffordable to them. So I think while the MBTA issue is the one that's probably getting the most attention right now, and maybe the only piece that comes to the floor at town meeting, I think the naysayers and the supporters need to get together and have some honest discussions, and I'd welcome them to do that with the Affordable Housing Trust, the Planning Board, the Board of Appeals, and others in town, what our alternatives are. We can't keep kicking the can down the road on affordability in this town, because I'll tell you right now, how unaffordable it is now, it's even worse than it was 5 years ago, and I can guarantee you it's going to be worse in 5 years. That's probably that, death, and taxes are the three things that I can guarantee in the next 5 years. So, I appreciate the MBTA piece. I appreciate the work that's been done in terms of trying to suffice with what the state's putting down for requirements, watching what's happening in Milton. I don't expect, if town meeting opposes this, that the Attorney General is going to call out Middleton. But I'll tell you, if she calls out Milton and takes away funding for them, there's already a precedence that we'll be dealing with the same thing here. And,
Guaranteed.
the grants that we're looking at, and quite honestly, the grants that we've received already, it may not be hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, but it has made a difference and has actually saved the taxpayers dollars. So I think we have to be vigilant in this during town meeting this year on the MBTA piece. As much as I may not like how it was devised and the heavy-handedness of basically towns having a gun to their head, it's actually making us have a conversation about affordability in this town. That, and quite honestly, the 40B project that arrived at our door, those two pieces are probably making us have a conversation that we've never had in this town, other than a cursory, yeah, we need to be affordable. So, that's my soapbox for the evening.
Okay. Anything else on the town, any comments or questions on the town meeting?
Just real small, check on the, another town constable, I noticed, I believe there's 2 select board openings this year. No?
Yeah, this year there's
No,
two.
it says one.
says
Last
one.
year there was
I'm
one.
Not aware of the other ones.
It's,
We'll update that block as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unless the charter changed.
yeah.
So beyond that, we've already started paring things down. We're down to 22. Yes.
I do have one question. Under Articles 20, 21, and 22, if these do go forward at town meeting, will Katrina be having any presentation on them, or?
I don't know if it'll be Katrina specifically, but the planning board or someone
Okay.
on their behalf. will be.
Someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're
Thank you.
doing, the planning board scheduled a public hearing on the zoning amendments for March 12th.
Okay.
And they'll be coming before this board in advance of that to discuss
On the
this.
5th, our next
Yeah,
meeting.
more in depth,
Yeah.
so.
And would charter review have to do a committee report, even though? No. Okay.
The investment income local option, what's that about?
I had a call into Sarah today about that, and I need her to confirm. So for now, I'd just say it's a placeholder, but I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Good. Speaking of investment income, at some point, I don't know if it's now, a future meeting, or at the next Saturday meeting, if we could have a discussion about recommendations we want to make for what is becoming more of a one-time, single-year, significant increase in our investment income, how we want to make some recommendations to squirrel that away.
And I think that'll probably go hand in hand with the capital conversation on Saturday.
A week from Saturday.
Yes, sorry, a week from Saturday.
If not, you'll be here by yourself.
Yep.
Any other comments on the
I
town
do
meeting
not.
warrant? No?
Don't think so.
Any word from ASCO's budget, where they are?
Still waiting, so there's, and that's like one of the outstanding pieces for our larger overall operating budget. So they'd gone through efforts, Dr. Harvey, to tighten their belt a little bit and remove some roles, some through attrition, but it's my understanding that there's been a little bit of pushback in the community, and I'm not sure where they landed in terms of bringing some of those back. So we don't have a hard figure yet.
Yeah, they were carrying 8% increase for medical.
Medical. And like 5 for dental, I think.
I think they'll probably come in lower. And whatever those savings are will be used to address some of the concerns that you've talked about and not reduce their overall.
Net zero, okay.
And is
Fingers crossed.
Is the elementary school committee making headway?
Slowly, so we had a conversation about that today as well. So they're not meeting until after the Saturday, March 2nd meeting that we're all having. So, one plus that they received was they got the same health insurance numbers as us, so they'll see a little reduction there. In terms of real dollars, that's only probably about 50,000 or so. So they're going to have to dig a little deeper in some areas.
Okay.
Where did our health insurance come in at?
You remember what the exact figure was?
Was it 5?
565, 5.65%, excuse me.
Okay, we'll move along. We have,
Let's go back.
oh,
Here.
What's that, number 4?
Yeah, number 4.
yeah, is Sharon, is that you, Sharon? Oh, okay, thanks for coming in.
No, it's my pleasure.
My fellow board members know that I'm an advocate that if people want to be appointed, they need to be here.
Of course, of course.
So if you want to tell us a little bit of why that you want this position?
Well, I'm passionate about helping people and finding resolution and improving upon. I'm new to Middleton. I'm originally from Canada, but I spent many years living in Manchester by the Sea. And so this is my first time having the experience in subsidized housing. You know, life sometimes can be a house of cards. Like, I was there and now I'm here, and I'm grateful every day that I have the opportunity to live in such a beautiful town and to get affordable housing, because otherwise I would either be in my car or living in a ditch. And so I want you to know that I really appreciate living in this town, and I'm very happy there. But, you know, if we're applying for government grants and we can make it nicer and, you know, make amenities, you know, like, I'm just using this as an example. Like, let's just say, like, I'm on disability, right? And I have, you know, 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement. I'm just using this as an example. And I'm one of the younger people. And if we get a grant for higher toilets that are more economical and they use less water, that benefits everybody, right? Because, you know, you're giving work to people, you're saving on the water for the usage, and it's making it more convenient for the people that are living there. And if we can apply for those grants, I just think that, you know, every little bit that I can do, you know, to help out in some way, it makes me feel valuable, that I can still contribute in a way that I can't the way I used to in a public work capacity. Does that make sense? So, and I also feel that, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but it's like, you know, just because it's subsidized housing, I would like to encourage people. I know this doesn't have anything to do with money, But I feel that if I can have a presence there and people know that I'm approachable and we can talk about ways to improve, then maybe people wouldn't throw their cigarette butts out on the ground. Like, they would take more pride and pick them up. So that benefits everybody in town too, right? Like, you want people, just because you don't own your house anymore or you don't own the property, that you still have pride in the community that you live in. Does that make sense? So that's, one of the main reasons why, I would like this opportunity to, do what I can to, make my little contribution in some way.
And which property do you live at?
I live at 4 Orchard Circle,
Orchard
which is
Circle?
subsidized housing.
Right,
And I
right, so-
got in because I was disabled. And I was working full-time. Previously, I was a paralegal and a dental hygienist, and, I had good jobs, and I had a secure family life. And then I got injured, and while I was waiting for the 25 months to get disability, I was living in and out of my car. Then I got a rental in Manchester, and then it had wastewater flooding, so I was homeless again. And then thankfully, I got a phone call from the Housing Authority in Middleton saying, we got a spot for you. And so I don't want to come across as not being appreciative, because I am grateful to live in this town. But that's where I live. I live at 4 Orchard Circle, and I love the people that are part of the Housing Authority and the people that have come across in town, and I just want to contribute whatever way I can.
Okay, so the reason I asked, that's not our only property, so my
Yes.
question, you said you'd be approachable. Will you also be approachable to the people at the other properties that's under the control of the Housing Authority, not just the
Absolutely.
one? That's,
Yep.
I think that's important to us.
Absolutely, and I would even like to take it one step further. Like, if, for instance, Eileen, like, she's very approachable, and I've spoken with her in the past, or Cynthia Dunn, or whoever. Like, if you need, I don't know, whatever you need, like, if you need me in a volunteer capacity, like, you're doing like a school fundraiser, for instance, I'm more than welcome. Like, I would welcome the opportunity to volunteer in other capacities if I'm able to do so. Like, I'm not just focused on my little bubble here. Like, I look at the big picture and all the pieces of the puzzle, so.
So
Anybody
I
Go ahead, Jeff.
I know you say you feel lucky to be in the community. I think we're lucky.
Yes.
I think we're lucky to have you in the community.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Not just an advocate and a voice of the residents of the 2 facilities, Orchard Circle and
3.
Memorial Drive.
Memorial. I always want to say Locust, but it's off of Locust, Memorial Drive. I appreciate you want to be a voice for them, and I always love when people want to volunteer, both for a role like that we actually have the appointing authority to, but there's always other opportunities to volunteer as well. You name it, we have the opportunity. You're a member of the community, so we appreciate that. So I'm really glad you stood up and are willing to do this.
Thank you so much.
Anything from any other board members?
I do not.
Okay.
Well, I'll move to appoint Sharon Purchase as the tenant member of the Middleton Housing Authority for a term to expire in June 30th, 2029.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I
Sharon.
really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on. Justin, I see we have a proposal from Industrial Communications for a tower. Can you explain what that's all about?
Sure. So Captain DeShane has been working with Jackie to put this together as part of the municipal complex. So this is specifically for the communications tower on the property. And Jackie, I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that.
Just briefly, that we're just looking to approve the vendor. This vendor is on the state contracts list, which enables us to do business with them through the contracts that the state negotiates with different vendors. So we're just looking for you to approve the vendor at this point, and then we'll work with the OPM to negotiate final pricing and get contract documents pulled together as we embark on the design.
So this wouldn't be part of the whole, like, this is an extra on top of the,
It's not, it's counted in our, it's budgeted in our construction budget at this time.
the general contractor he's separate from, he wouldn't take control of this? This is
Not at
something-
all. This is a real specialized area. So
Okay.
we did have some specific pricing, which you'll see in the document, for some of the site work and some of the base distribution and the foundations and footings to see if it was more economical for WT Rich to do the prep work for this particular pad on the site. But based on the numbers we got back from industrial, it was better for us to work with them. So they do, basically, WT Rich will clear the site, and then there'll be a section that soup to nuts is industrial for the tower, until they turn it over to Middleton Fire, who will do the final touches and detail work.
Is there any opportunity for room in this tower for other uses, i.e. cellular? Is there an opportunity that a cellular plan would want to be on this tower and would actually be able to bring either revenue or cost sharing?
It's a great question. We're not quite there yet. There is extra room on the tower. You know, Meld will have some communications equipment, Public Works, Public Safety, but we're not quite there yet because the building committee is asking for that as well. This tower is only 80 feet. It's not 100 feet, so that does limit its scope a little bit. But right now, we're just trying to get the core function.
Yeah, because the two other towers in town that have cell on it are over near the DPW facility and at the transfer station, I believe.
There's one also on North Main Street,
Yes.
near the liquor store, I think, behind, is that?
The
Private
Christmas
property?
tree.
Yeah, that's on private
Yeah.
property, though, but there is, but it's
There's
the
one
same,
on the
yeah.
pasture too.
Yeah, so right now, we're just trying to get this
Would
sorted.
would that be a case that if there's room on there in the future, we would issue an RFP?
Correct.
Okay.
So right now, we just want to get the base design incorporated, just to get the bid documents
there is-
for the rest of it.
Room on there, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we're not building it perfectly to exactly what we need today. We want to make sure that we have what we need for the future, but I would say it's not something we're overbuilding either.
Okay.
But you say it's, from what I hear, it's 80 feet high and the norm for communications is 100. Would we be better off to make it 100, looking to rent space on it? It'd be more likely to be able to do that if it were 100?
We're limited to 80 feet on that site for 2 permits, the zoning permit that we have for the site, and then also with our federal incidental take permit for the Eagles.
Okay.
So we told the federal government a year ago, 80 feet.
Okay.
We're not gonna undo the 80 feet at this point, unfortunately.
Oh, God, that would be a rabbit hole.
Probably put a nest on the top of it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not undersized. There's 80 feet ones, there's 100 feet ones. It's not like we're undersizing
Right,
ourselves. I would just say that with how close Natsu Way is, if you think about how the distance of the tower on the site and Natsu Way, if you, like from a bird's eye view, there's a lot to do with coverage availability, you know, so it's, to Brian's earlier comment, there's an RFP, we look at coverage maps. It's an extensive process. We're not ruling it out, it's just too soon.
Did we only get one price from one vendor?
There's only one vendor that has the state contract, so the state negotiates this
Okay.
contract for us.
Gotcha.
It's competitive.
Yeah.
The site also, I guess is worth mentioning, is on a hill, so you're getting some added height.
It's the highest point, I assume, that's available.
And this vendor, for those that want to do a little homework, they just did the tower in the town of Wellesley. So they recently, this is what they do, is communications towers of this nature, their bread and butter.
So I'll move to approve Industrial Communications LLC for the communications tower.
Second?
Do you have to include an amount or just as, okay.
So we're just being asked to approve
Okay.
the
The
vendor.
vendor.
Okay, all in
Who was
favor?
the second? I'm sorry.
Deb,
I
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Next, we have a vote to authorize the superintendent of schools, Scott Morrison, to submit a statement of interest for the roof for this building.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just a follow-up from your last meeting. At the last meeting, we had talked about wanting to get a little bit of, at least on a high level of scope for the project. So Steve Clifford, the Director of Facilities, last Monday, the 12th, provided a brief scope attached in your packet to highlight 1,000 square feet of roof area on this building here at Fuller Meadow School. And the total high-level project cost, they're anticipating about 2.2 million, so it's not terribly cheap. It's worth highlighting that that cost would include the OPM, the designer, and the actual construction costs. We don't know definitively what the proportions would be in terms of the percentage that MSBA is picking up. We don't quite know it at this time.
Do you have a rough idea or any guess, like, is there a range?
Don't hold me to it, but I'd say probably about 30 to 40.
I was going to say 35, 33,
Okay.
35%.
Better than nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's, you know, you're getting, I was gonna say free money, but really you're getting.
And
you're
where would
getting
the
your
other money come, what would be our funding source? Where would the money come from for the rest of it?
It's an excellent question.
Debt exclusion.
Yeah, so you could do a debt exclusion, depending how much it is realistically. If there's, a one-time large chunk of free cash, you could throw down on it.
We did a debt exclusion for the other portion of the roof that was, at the time, 40% funded by SBA.
So, and that's a bridge that we can cross when we get to it, but excellent question in terms of the funding source. And then there's two other outstanding items. One is inflation. So if they don't approve it this year and it goes to next year or the year after, it's been runaway inflation costs that hopefully will plateau at some point, but there's no guarantee there. And then also hazardous materials. So given the age of the roof, I doubt there'd be too much there, but sometimes you deal with like asbestos, mastic, and other things when you're dealing with a roof. So there'd be additional costs there.
So do we have to provide some affirmative funding before we submit to SBA?
So right now, it's exclusively just the statement of interest phase, but before we actually enter the program, you do have to put up, and I have to look into that. So it's either a significant portion, or it may be the entire amount with the understanding that you're gonna
You're gonna bond it and then
reimbursed.
get the reimbursement.
Yeah, you have to prove that you can surpass the threshold, the cost of the entire project.
Have they given us a timeline of what they expect SBA is going to give us for, if we submit the statement of feasibility and statement of interest, and they come back and say, yep, we're interested, what is our timeline to actually provide the funding? Is this something that would have to happen in the fall, or would they give us to the next Springtown meeting?
It's a pretty short runway, and so with that in mind, we've asked them to put it on the capital plan for this spring, with the understanding that even if there's a vote to approve it, it's a vote to authorize to borrow, for example, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to borrow that year.
So, which leads me to the final part of my question, which is, if SBA does not approve this, we're still likely going ahead because the roof
It's
needs
still
to
a
be
need.
replaced. Yeah.
Yeah, still a need. So, my thought is if they don't approve it this year, evaluate, see if you can push it back and see if they'll do it the next year, but I'd say by year 3, if they're not picking up the phone, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and just do it.
Yeah. 32,000 square feet of roof, 2.2 million. The Masco project, which is roof, HVAC, and building management system, the roof is substantially more. There's 380,000 square feet of facility. The roof isn't that big because there's
3 floors, 2 to 3 floors.
2 to 3 floors. So I mean, maybe you should suggest, that to Steve Clifford to have a conversation with the Jeff Sands to make sure that the numbers that Masco is talking about kind of makes sense, because Steve has done some work, more recently. We'd hate to, Masco to be talking about a total of a $30 million project, $5 million for design, OPM, and everything else, and then $25 million for construction, and that, and with constructions to happen probably in 27 or 28, and not be enough money. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't know if that conversation would yield anything, but,
Yeah. And they'll, since they are putting it in for the capital plan, they'll be coming on Saturday, March 2nd, so we can drill down on that a little bit further. I wouldn't be surprised if the MSBA does approve it and they get into the design phase. As part of the MSBA program, they choose your OPM and they choose your designer on your behalf. And I wouldn't be shocked if they, identify early on that that may not be a sufficient amount to cover the cost. But we'll see.
And I think there's a draft motion, Costa. I think you have it up if,
Oh yeah, it's a long one, sorry.
yeah. Do you have
Give it a
it?
go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I move to support the following statement. Having convened in an open meeting on February 20th, 2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Middleton Select Board, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, hereby votes to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest form dated 28 February 2024 for the Fulham Meadow Elementary School, located at 143 South Main Street, Middleton, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Or, priority one, yeah.
Yep.
Priority one, the Middleton Public Schools seeks to replace a section of roofing of approximate 31,724 square feet in size located in the southwest area of the school. The roofing is original to its section of the school building, constructed 1995-1996. The roof is of ethylene propylene DN monomer, EPDM, synthetic rubber construction. The roofing has exceeded its service life and is in need of full replacement. Sorry, my computer just went. To secure the safety, health, and function of the classrooms, gymnasium, and hallways it serves below, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that the submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Board Authority is in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Middleton to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Board School Building Authority.
Nicely
Is
done,
there
Mark.
more?
Yep,
Oh.
good job.
Can you repeat that?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are we all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Any updates or announcements from anybody?
Nope.
No?
Just remember March 12th for the planning board
Yeah.
hearing on the zoning
Yep,
proposals.
absolutely, yep. Okay, so before we take a motion for executive session, will we be coming out, are we planning on coming back out or not?
No, I would ratify it in your upcoming meeting.
Okay, so is there a motion to
Mr.
go?
Chairman, I move that we enter executive section pursuant to General Law 38, Section 21A3 for strategy respective to collective bargaining negotiations, as well as General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, for strategy session in preparation of negotiation with non-union personnel. And in both cases, we will not be returning to open session.
Second.
Okay, do you want to take a roll call, Rick?
Sure. Deb?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Okay, we're in executive session.